Ishari Amarasinghe, a postdoctoral researcher at UPF Barcelona. As the title indicates, in this study, we focused on understanding and characterizing participation and interaction in a citizen science online community. This work is being carried out within the context of a European project called CS-Track, which is financed by the European Union in the framework of its Horizon 2020 program. The project aims to carry out an in-depth investigation into citizen science and the activities that takes place in its context. Two groups involved in the current study. One is Tide Research Group at UPF, where I'm currently working with Patricia Santos and Professor Hernández-Leo. Sven Manske and Professor Ulrich Hoppe is at the RIAS group from Duisburg, Germany. First, I'll start giving an introduction to the context of the study. As you may know, citizen science is a growing trend that builds on the participation of persons who are not considered as professional scientists in scientific activities and achievements. Usually, activities carried out in the citizen science projects are interdisciplinary, and different stakeholder groups such as scientists, moderators, and volunteers take part in those activities and collaborate. Often, these activities take place in online communities and make use of different types of collaborative technologies. Social networking in such online communities can help to enhance the dialogue between different stakeholder groups, and it is interesting to understand the participation and collaboration patterns that are contributing to knowledge building discourse in such online spaces. Previous research has shown that the success of such projects are dependent on diverse stakeholders' contributions. In this line, some important questions that we can explore are which kinds of roles and interactions can we observe and ascertain? Are the volunteers in a way instrumentalized as a kind of mechanical Turks, or do they engage in legitimate peripheral participation as a source of learning and personal growth? Previous studies have studied profiles and levels of engagement on the part of volunteers in CS projects using different techniques such as counting approaches and discourse analysis techniques. In our study, we used publicly available forum data from the chimpanzee project hosted in Zooniverse platform. Zooniverse is one of the world's largest CS platforms that invites the public to participate in scientific data analysis and engage in discussion with professional scientists. In our analysis of this data, we go beyond a counting approach and applied network analysis techniques, namely social network analysis and epistemic network analysis, to understand the social relations and to characterize forum interactions in terms of certain types of knowledge building and exchange. Forum data from chimpanzee project is distributed among multiple discussion boards. There are three types of discussion boards, namely health boards, chat boards, and science boards. Each board is again subdivided into subboards. For instance, there are 4 subboards under the health board, as you can see here. Each subboard consisted of a number of conversations, and each conversation consists of several posts. In our study, we used a crawling approach to retrieve conversations and posts from the project stock pages. Here you can see a summary of the important fields of the collected dataset that is used for subsequent data analysis. Next, regarding the analysis methods, we used SNA techniques to understand the quantitative involvement of actors in the discourse. For instance, the out degree states how many times an actor actively contributed to a discussion in relation to a receiving actor. The in degree quantifies the receptive characteristics of an actor. For instance, how many times the actor has been addressed or referred to. Also, replying and mentioning mechanisms in the discourse can be conceived as mechanisms that establish relations between actors, therefore can be used to model social relations. In summary, here you can see the process we adhere to obtain SNA results. First, we retrieved forum data sets using a crawling approach And then we extracted the networks following certain criteria that I will describe in the next slide. We used Gephi software to visualize the networks and to obtain results. The network consisted of unique nodes for each users who contributed to the discussion by creating a post in a conversation. The type of roles, for instance, the moderators, scientists, and volunteers were modeled as a node attribute. Network edges were created considering the replies and the references in the posts. We also used ENA techniques to model, visualize, and quantitatively compare how different user roles interact within discussion spaces and their collective knowledge building processes. ENA is an important discourse analysis technique because it overcomes the limitations of classical frequency-based measures by taking into account the temporality in discourse data. ENA takes as an input coded data sets, and it automatically generates weighted dynamic networks that visualize the structure of connections among codes in discourse. Here is the coding scheme we used for data coding. We followed a bottom-up approach and also looked at relevant literature to identify relevant codes. In total, there are 9 different codes. The first 2 codes related to data collection and data analysis in CS activities. There were also 2 codes to indicate help giving and requesting help. Other codes reflected discussion, providing updates, initiation of new ideas, and organizing project-related activities. Here you can see the process we adhered to obtain ENA results. In this case, we selected a subset from the entire dataset that consisted of 130 posts. Individual posts were then coded following the coding scheme. The coded dataset was then used as an input in the ENA web tool to retrieve ENA models. Regarding the results, here you can see the extracted sociogram of all boards. A main observation here is that the densely connected component consists of mainly moderators and scientists that have a high out degree. Next, we also investigated the direction of communication, in particular who references whom in terms of the affiliated forum roles. Some important observations here is that in the help board, most references are made by moderators. The interpretation here is that when volunteers seek for help, they typically do not know whom to address, and moderators might point to scientists. In the chat board, volunteers are mentioned quite often because the moderators and scientists welcome them. And also this forum is sometimes used by the volunteers to introduce themselves. Another interesting observation here is that all figures indicate scientists mostly communicate with other persons from other roles, not with other scientists. These type of patterns indicate that communication in these online spaces are well coordinated among different roles and is also important for successful teamwork. We also used eigenvector centrality to quantify the reputation or the influence of actors. In summary, for all affiliated forum roles, we can observe a drop in active users over time and the most drastic drop on the part of the volunteers. It could be the case that volunteers with less activity drop out, but the well-connected ones remain. Here you can see in detail the eigenvector centrality over time for the actors with the highest eigenvector centrality. In the case of the volunteers, for some the centrality is increasing and for the others it is decreasing and even leading to a dropout. As I mentioned earlier, this could be the case for the less connected ones. Regarding the moderators, we can observe a decrease in centrality. And for the scientists, we could not observe any comparable patterns. Next, regarding the ENA results, as shown here, in the help board, volunteers and moderators exhibit similar behaviors as they often made connections among help seeking and help giving. The epistemic network of scientists is different from networks generated for volunteers and moderators. Some interesting observations here are the connections to the code updates and sharing knowledge, which indicates that In these type of discussion spaces, scientists provide important updates and share knowledge that are necessary to carry out the intended CS task. Regarding the chat board, the strong connections observed for volunteers are between discussion, giving help, and initiating codes that can be interpreted as discussions leading to the proposal of new ideas. The networks generated for moderators and scientists show a similar network structure. I'll describe the differences later using different networks. In the science board, the strong connections between codes such as data collection, discussion, data analysis, giving help indicate that volunteers express doubts as they engage in CS activities. Expressing doubts while engaged in data analysis also seem to co-occur with strong help giving. Here also regarding the moderators and scientists, we generate a difference network to observe the differences clearly. Here you can see the difference networks generated for chat board and science board for moderators in purple and scientists in orange. The strong connections between data analysis, discussion, data collection, and giving help for moderators in both chat and science boards indicate that moderators engage in moderating and fueling the discussions. Regarding the scientist, the strong connections to code sharing knowledge in both chat and science boards for indicate that they share important knowledge that is required to carry out CS activities. In summary, the results obtained from ENA and SNA revealed interesting findings about participation and collaboration patterns of different stakeholder groups that could not be obtained using either of the techniques alone. For instance, ENA indicated that in the help board, volunteers and moderators engaged in help seeking and help giving. SNA further indicated that in many instances, volunteers were unaware to whom the help requests need to be addressed. When moderators do not have sufficient knowledge to handle such a help request, they were seen to notify and obtain help from the science team. ENA also showed that in the chat and science boards, volunteers and moderators not only engaged in the assigned CS task, such as tagging or classification, but they also engage in sharing opinions, doubts, and concerns, which leads to the initiation of new ideas. Such citizen-led inquiries can eventually lead to citizen-initiated discoveries in these type of CS projects. ENA results also indicated that initiation does not occur frequently in the case of scientists, indicating that the knowledge they share is in a different format. SNA also confirmed the important role of moderators in these forums who are mediating and fueling the discussions. Moreover, SNA also showed that in general, volunteers seem to aspire establishing a network of high reputation. Being connected to prestigious people can be a motivational factor for volunteers participating in these type of activities. Also, these type of projects foresees different models to recruit moderators, particularly from the volunteers. However, we have extracted data exposed, and we could not answer such questions based on evidence, and it will be interesting to conduct future studies to investigate those aspects further. Regarding the findings of the ENA, it should be noted that the results need to be interpreted with caution given the limited number of talk pages that we selected to generate epistemic networks. In conclusion, we think that understanding the dynamics in discussion spaces of CS project is important, not only to characterize and distinguish different forms of participation and expertise of different user roles, but it provides opportunities to improve CS practice in different application fields, such as formal educational context, and also to support policymakers. It should also be noted that the analysis presented in this study was based only on the forum discussions, and these discussions only capture a small portion of users' activities. As we have limited access to Suniverse platform, we do not have any insights in the activity participation beyond the forum activities. In the future, it would be interesting to take such aspects into consideration and to extend the existing analysis using other data sources to obtain further insights regarding communication and knowledge building aspects related to citizen science projects. Here are some of the references, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.